we will just sprinkle silica sand particles. You can see here, these are silica sand particles. So, yes, these are silica sand particles. These are silica sand particles. So, we will be sprinkling the silica sand particles on this slurry, which is coated over the pattern tree. So, what happens is that the silica sand particles, this will get stick. This will stick to the surface of this slurry, which is coated on the pattern tree. This particular process is called as stuccoing. You can see here, stuccoing. This process is called as stuccoing. That is, when silica particles are applied on the slurry, this sticks onto the when silica particles are applied onto this slurry, which is coated over the wax pattern. This process of depositing the silica sand particles on the slurry, which is coated on the wax pattern, we call that process as stuccoing. Yes. And after this is coated, it is dried. We will dry this. Yes. Now what happens is, you can see here, we will repeat the step 3 and 4. What is step 3? What was step 3? The step 3 was dipping this pattern tree made up of wax into this slurry of refractory material. And after that, it was taken out and the sand particles was sprinkled onto it. That was step number 4. So then it is dried. So these steps are repeated. So after each step, after every time you repeat these steps, the thickness of the shell formed over this wax pattern tree will increase. And we will repeat this step 3 and 4 until the required thickness of the shell is obtained. We will be repeating this. And we know that the more the thickness of the shell, more will be the strength of the mold. So usually we take almost 6 to 15 millimeter thickness of shell. And this, how much thickness we should take, it depends on different factors like size of casting, then pouring temperature of the molten metal, shape of casting. So all these factors, size of casting, temperature of pouring, shape of casting, that governs the thickness of shell mold. So until that required thickness is obtained, we will dip this wax pattern on this slurry, take it out, coat it with silica sand particle, and dry it again, dip it again in the molten refractory slurry. Sorry, not yes. Again, we will dip it in the refractory slurry, then coat it with sand particles, dry it again, repeat it until the required thickness is obtained. Yes. Now, one thing here you have to understand is that the silica sand particles, we use 2 types of silica sand particles. One is fine grain, the other is coarse grain. So if we have mold like this, you can see here, if we have mold like this is the mold, then this region we try to coat with fine grain sand particles. And the reason is that is the region which is getting into contact with the final casting. So if it is fine, the surface finish will be excellent. You will get excellent surface finish for the final casting. So for coating these regions, we use fine sand particles. So initially we use fine sand for coating. And after, for this outer region, we will be using coarse grains. Yes. So once we get this sufficient thickness, of the mold, we actually what we do is we will start heating. We will heat this whole setup. And we know that the outer coating is made of refractory materials. It can withstand temperature. But the inside wax, it is having low melting temperature. It will melt. It will melt. And what happens is once this wax melts, we will keep this apparatus in such a way that this wax will be drained outside the mold cavity, as shown in the figure. You can see here. So here it is kept like this whole apparatus, this pattern tree with slurry coating is heated in the inverted position. It is heated in the inverted position so that once the wax is melted, it gets emptied. It gets fully emptied. So the whole wax melt will be removed. So we will be left only with the outer shell. We will be left only with the outer shell. So this step is called as dewaxing. We call this step as dewaxing. And once this we remove the whole wax, we will left with this shell. Now we will what we will do is we take the molten metal, take the metal whose casting has to be made, we melt it, then pour this molten metal into this mold cavity as shown in the figure. So here what they do is they will just, you can see here, you can see a point here, there is preheating. Preheating means just before pouring the molten metal, you heat the mold. You will just heat the mold to ensure that all the contaminants are eliminated. Then actually there are other roles. The other role is if you heat this mold, then it is very high will be at comparatively higher temperature. Usually we heat it to a temperature of 100 to 1000 degrees Celsius. So this mold will be at a very high temperature. So